Welcome to another episode of the Carry Trainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, the material you're about to hear is a little different than our regular format. This is an excerpt from our training program that took place in Dover, Tennessee last year. We were discussing not only firearms training, but mindset. Mindset gets tossed around all the time. It's a canned word in the training world, and often the true meaning is lost. We're not discussing training from a perspective of merely winning in violence, but how to do so by cultivating your mindset where it touches all areas of your life. You're going to hear some topics talked about here like spatial awareness, but also awareness to what's going on in and around your actual body and psyche. Enjoy the next hour. Let us know what you think. So yesterday was a bunch of mechanical stuff, getting you up to speed on, and we'll continue to reinforce that if we see something not right. But now it's kind of incumbent upon you to be mindful of that as now we start applying tactics with those mechanics. I like to start today talking a little bit about mindset. You guys all know who Colonel Jeff Cooper was? Raise your hand if you do know who he was. So if you don't know who Jeff Cooper was and you were in my course 2 times already, and this is the 3rd time, I wonder why you didn't raise your hand. Oh, I didn't see your hand up. Okay. Colonel Cooper is what they call the father of the modern technique of the pistol. So everything that we're doing today, he kind of was the impetus for that training. Back in the day, shot a pistol with one hand, pointed out towards a target, or you were in the low FBI crouch, and Cooper figured out a lot of ways to streamline that. Jeff also created what was his color code of awareness. Kind of like how we had the psych gears yesterday. It's not something that you need to be focusing on like I am in psych gear 1, I am in psych gear 2. These color codes were more to bring you back into reality. Most of us right now are in white. We're unaware of what's going on. You're cold. You're just ready to get going, thinking about the eggs churning in your gut and wondering how long until you have to take a shit.
Like walking down the street, looking at your phone.
Looking at your phone. So in your handout, white, yellow, orange, red, black, okay? White's a bad place to be. Legitimately, you only should really be there home in bed at night, and even then you should have something to alert you before somebody's on top of you, a dog, an alarm. Jeff went so far when he built his home, his bedroom was at the end of a long hallway. Only way into that hallway was a barred gate with a lock that you had to get to from his side of the room, so that somebody would have to make a bunch of racket with a hacksaw or an explosive to actually get to him and his wife. So you had to breach a gate,
like an embassy door.
Yeah, and then go down a long hallway. So by that time, he'd be standing there fucking shooting at your ass down this long hallway. His house was designed in a fashion. This is old medieval shit. Each wing of the house had these angles where nobody could hide. There was nobody could hide against a wall of his house. You could always, from windows, see out everywhere around it. I believe it was 5-sided, still there. So there's nowhere to hide. He went to great lengths for nobody to ever fuck him up. After Korea, he started what now is very normal. He started a company training security personnel, like heads of state. And he would often, like a president would hire him to train, like Mexico was one of the companies that hired him, I believe, a bunch of South American countries to train their security detail. And he would take the dignitary and train them personally because he said, hey, these paid guys, at the end of the day, a paid security person, are they going to trade their life for yours? So he made sure these families and the heads of states themselves knew how to take care of themselves, which is one of the reasons he came up with this. And most militaries of the world have adopted this as standard practice. So white, totally unaware. Yellow is where you should live most of your life. You're calmly aware of what's going on. Calmly meaning that you're not all Johnny heightened spidey senses. So you're in this yellow, and that's not just for a physical threat of violence. It could be, where's the fire escapes in this building? Where's my means of egress if an old lady crashes through the front of this building? If this place lights on fire? You understand what I mean? So you're being aware of all kinds of things. How are people entering this building? Who doesn't belong here? All you're doing is taking in information, but you're doing it in a relaxed manner. Yesterday I said to you that multitasking is bullshit, and that's what I mean. Z just said you're down in your phone. You can't really do two things at once and get good at taking in information. Like driving and texting, you know? Do one or the other.
And to add to that, Mick, real quick,
Please.
for yellow, like, in order to be not super switched on and paranoid in your yellow, what do you think would help with that? Prior to actually being in a circumstance, being in a restaurant. Training. Because you have a competence level that provides you confidence so that you don't need to be worried so much because you feel like I can take care of things because I'm trained. I'm not figuring things out on the fly, like, what do I do if I do this? What do I do if this happens? I've trained. I know I'm gonna get my gun out and do this, or I know I'm gonna get down. I've thought about it. Even just thinking about it a little bit when you go in the restaurant, like we talked about recently. In yellow, you don't have to be paranoid. I just kind of think through, like,
If A happens, B's my response.
and now I'm prepared a little bit. I've just visualized it just a little bit and prepared my brain to react. So it's not going from white to the other colors that you're gonna be talking about in a minute.
And I think we talked a little bit about that yesterday, the mental imagery a little bit. You know, you're back to the big picture, telling yourself what you want to be, how you want to be, not just, what am I trying to say? Too often we hope for a plan. What do you guys say? Hope is not a course of action, right? So you plan for it.
You don't hope for the best outcome, you prepare for the best outcome.
Yeah, but then prepare for it as well. Not
Yeah.
just like, well, I guess everything will be all right. The good Lord will take care of me. You know, plan for it. So orange, now you've recognized there's a specific threat. You're focusing on what's going on, in a relaxed manner. Somebody comes in that doesn't belong there. You
they're
hear a
walking like
smoke
this.
alarm go off or fire alarm go off. So you've now started to orientate yourself to something that could potentially be a problem. You're walking your dog at night, and you hear another dog in your neighborhood growling that's not supposed to be out of his yard. Fuck, you know. I got a friend with a couple pit bulls that are like nice dogs until they're not. That's something I may want to orientate myself to. That doesn't mean that the threat is real, though. It just means that I'm gonna pay attention to him. He doesn't belong here. He looks a little sketchy. I'm just gonna give him a little extra attention. At that point, you now can cross over into this ready to fight stage. Hey man, what are you doing here? Whatever the fuck I want. Okay, now we might have a fucking issue that we need to address. Still doesn't mean I'm shooting somebody or running away or jumping out of a window or calling 911. Now we can go to our whatever our correct response is. Black is totally in the fight. And what he just said, the problem is when I'm walking down the street on my phone, you're the bad guy, and you know, now we're going from one to the other. We've all been pushing our grocery cart through the store, or unless your mommy's still shop for you, you've been somewhere, and somebody all of a sudden walks up, hey man, it's one of your buddies, right? And you're like, oh fuck, I totally did not just see him. And it's a joke, but then you think about it later, like that could have been anybody. And most of the time, violence from true predators is not, I'm gonna give you a beep in about 2 minutes, Z, and I'm gonna attack you. I'm gonna initiate an attack. No, instead it's, and he's bleeding, right?
So black, like fight, flight, or freeze, and most people freeze when going from white straight to black. We skip red, huh?
No, I was getting to that. So that, go ahead, you were about to talk about red. I just dropped my glove.
Oh, red is you identified something, and you went orange, right? I see something that may deserve my attention, besides just all the relevant shit around me. And then red is I'm taking action, right? I like to use the crosswalk analogy because everybody has been on a crosswalk, right? Not everybody's been in some kind of crazy, chaotic fight or whatever, or been robbed or whatever the case may be. A crosswalk, Nashville especially, when you go a crosswalk, if I come to a crosswalk in a busy city street and I'm on my phone and I'm not paying attention to the little man or whatever, that's in the white. You're not paying attention. Is there a car coming? Do I have the signal to go? I'm not paying attention at all, right? So if something happened at that point and the car like beeped its horn, you would be like this, right? You wouldn't be like, oh, or hey, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You'd be unprepared. Yellow is, I'm simply walking to a crosswalk and I look both ways and I'm observing what's going on at a crosswalk and handling my business. Orange would be that I'm going across the crosswalk and I got the signal, but I see a car that looks like maybe it's not going to slow down or can't slow down at the speed it's going, you know, and I'm kind of like, okay. You know what I mean? Red is the car is not slowing down. I'm here and I'm like, I took action, right? Because the car didn't. It required me to take action. Black would be me being in that white. I wasn't paying attention. Simple as that, right? So what's better? Color to be in. Ready for something to take place because of the environment you're in. Yellow. I'm on a range, I'm already being aware of people with guns and bullets and not going down past a certain line without letting people know because of the environment I'm in. I'm in a restaurant with a lot of people. I'm not thinking, oh, I need to creep around like this all the time or have my knife ready. I just simply think, all right, well, a lot of people, somebody wanted to shoot somebody or do something crazy for some reason. Do I have a place to take cover and save myself until I can figure out how I'm gonna take action? Simple as that. I'm just being in the yellow, and then once that's done, I've already kind of prepared my mind, you know, visualized, and that's my plan. When it happens, I know I'm getting down right here. We talked about some of the guys in the movie theater, you know, the whole movie theater thing that happened. I sit like closer, the hard corner of the movie theater as people come in, you know, and far away. That way I've got more time to react than, say, the other people. I'm not gonna be looking over the thing all the time, not paying attention to the movie. I'm hoping that I've set up a fail-safe to give me time to react. So if he comes in and just tries to spray everybody, he's gonna spray everybody close to him most likely first. And I got time to get down and get my kids down and lay flat until I figure out, can I get my gun out and get the drop on this guy? Can I tackle him if he's on top of me or something? You know, whatever the case may be. So that's just a simple plan. First thing, I'm surviving. Yellow, I'm just surviving my environment. I don't want to get ran over, so let me pay attention to the crosswalk and the cars coming. Orange, why's that guy fucking digging around in his pants? Or why's that guy like standing like the ushers sometimes come in and like stand there, and I'm like, till I realize they're an usher, I'm like, why the fuck is he just standing there looking around and not going to his seat? You know, orange, red, he's like this. And now I'm like, oh, I'm about to fucking take action, or I'm about to get the fuck down, or I see him actually doing something, smacking this old lady in the front, and I'm like, I'm not gonna allow that. Make sense? Does that make sense? Anything to add to that, mate?
I think the biggest thing like about all of that, if you've never looked at that concept, is paying attention. It's all about the reactionary gap of fighting and understanding that when we're training here, using stimulus to start a fight, a beep, a whistle, somebody yelling, you know, up, fight, gun, threat, whatever it is, all of that is contingent upon you being ready for that stimulus. Again, like love doing this, like, so I carry this Colonel blade on me, right? And I can draw that and stick it in you pretty quick. I'm gonna put it back in, but I could have that right here underneath my arm, right here. Officer, where's the nearest place to get a cup of coffee? You know? Dude, your beard is so fucking sexy.
Cut it off.
You're from Mississippi? You know, it's super, super easy. God, your hair looks pretty. Sorry, I jabbed you a little bit. But that's like, it's that simple to, you know, walk up on somebody even.
Now, if we're standing out here, and he does that to me, with my condition being just the yellow right now, would that be any reason for me to go to red and think this is a significant threat, possibly, in this environment? No. Now, say on the streets of Louisiana, after Mardi Gras, everything's closed down, you're by yourself or just with a buddy, and there's some random comes up like, hey, buddy, hey, I'm going to red.
Yeah, I would
I
too.
realize the environment I'm in.
See what I mean?
Step off a little bit. I'm not always just like, why are you talking to me, dude? You know, it's environment dependent. Like should I be expecting at this time? Why are you messing me in the middle of the night all by yourself, walking up to me like that and getting in my bubble as well?
Yeah.
You know, I'm on, hey, what's going on here, buddy? Red.
But people don't have to be confrontational either. Oh man, I think, did we go to high school together? Dude, you're fucking bleeding out right now. It doesn't have to be all kinds of crazy aggression either. People do that all the time. Predators don't, when we go hunting, we don't walk out in the woods and go, hey, 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 whoa,
Here.
we're gonna shoot you in about a half an hour to an hour. No, you spray yourself in shit to hide your scent.
You walk like that?
You climb up in your tree stand and you sit down and check your shit, and then you get super fucking quiet and you wait so you can murder them when they don't see you. They're eating stuff, right? They're so, and you're like looking at them, you're like, fuck, I'm about to murder this beautiful animal.
Look what I did.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's what a predator of men does too. Any of us, if you were gonna kill a human being, you lie in wait. You wait until they're not ready. You pick somebody not paying attention, somebody that's in that white zone. There's so many studies on, in the 60s and 70s, there were studies done. These researchers went into prisons and interviewed felons, showed them pictures. They were basically like black and white photos of people walking around cities. And they said, pick the ones you'd attack. And it was like 95% accurate that all of these criminals picked the same people and said, nah, I'd leave that one alone. And it was all body language, you know, a man erect, paying attention. And it wasn't, these were not videos. I'm not erect here, dickheads. I'm talking about, you know, not hunched over.
Like, I'm not attacking him. He's
A person though paying attention versus somebody that was slumped over, you know, like this. Because automatically, we human beings know what happens when you see somebody like this. What do you automatically think?
Weak.
Yeah, you know, just like
Vulnerable.
Yeah, depressed, vulnerable. But you see somebody that's walking through the store.
Make eye contact with you.
Right? You know, you're like, oh, that guy's, and he even makes you smile.
He's a fairy.
For real though. So the way you carry yourself in the world, people perceive that. A threat would perceive you differently than they would. So don't make yourself that threat. And then your point, like that video we posted of those dudes in Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's like 11 o'clock at night.
Street's empty.
Yeah. But they're like, why are you there? Where they were at, they had no business being. You guys see that video? I know you probably saw it.
It's on Inside Edition or something.
Walked up, knocked that dude out cold. I mean, by the time he got to here, he was already out cold.
The other guy was out before the other guy, as the other guy was just turning and seeing what was going on. That's how much aware he was.
And then they put the boots to him.
Yeah, he actually cracked his skull because he went straight down and hit his head.
Yeah.
And they ran behind him. I mean, they ran up. They didn't creep up like.
They might have been liquored too. You know, who knows? Which again, why you out if you don't want that to happen? I do it with my paper.
Hey Mick, yes. Another thing you can add to that, but they've talked to criminals who actually attacked police officers, and they would single out the disheveled, the guy that didn't take pride in his uniform, that looked sloppy, and they were like, well, he ain't squared away.
Yeah, that guy's definitely not trained.
Same thing. Yep.
Which I think is that you?
Me?
Yeah. No,
Oh,
I actually don't.
Guy.
Lots of starch in that shirt as well. He's squared away. But yeah, the dumpy cop, they'll go after.
They're opportunists. Criminals are opportunists. Just like you see a deal, that's when you want to take the opportunity. You see an advantage somehow in life, you try to take the opportunity. Criminals are looking for the same thing. Mm-hmm. Conducive environment, am I going to get caught? Okay, that's check one. Where's the target? Not that guy. He stared me in my eyes and fucking looking for something, apparently. Or he's big. I don't want to fight. I want a smaller, feeble person that I can take advantage of. That's an opportunity, right? Is everybody built that way? You want an opportunity? So don't be an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Conversely, for the colors, to the context of somebody, somebody coming in, active shooter, and guys that jump up and do this. what do you think happens? You become a target. He's already amped up, right? He's looking for any sudden movement, right, to do something. And maybe you turn a robbery into a murder because he's so amped up, he's scared. Maybe he's just wanted to rob somebody, not a murderer. But you jumping like that or doing something, you made yourself a target. You put people in danger near you, put everybody else in danger. Why can't you just, if you get the opportunity, you get the opportunity. Otherwise, comply unless there's some reason you think it's an imminent danger for your life, or they're taking your kid or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Wait for your ambush opportunity. You're looking for the ambush opportunity on your side. So nothing sudden, so survive.
We talked about a little bit, you just touched on criminal profile, which is where this goes next. We talked yesterday about reasonable man doctrine, right? We can't assume a person engaged in a felony is going to do things that a reasonable person would do or respond. I pointed my gun at him, he didn't do anything. Well, the guy's already in the middle of something that could put him in jail for 20 years. He doesn't give a shit about you pointing a gun at him, right? That person looks at us like we go to the grocery store and we purchase things. They look at you the same way that there's cans on a shelf. You and whatever's on your person, a person wired that way, often grew up in a place full of violence, full of crime. They're totally desensitized to it. You may be the first time in your life you're ever engaging in some type of violence. For them, it's old hat, you know? It's like somebody that climbs around in skyscrapers all day long. The iron workers, those pictures you used to see, you know, the dudes eating lunch on a steel beam. Oh my God, that would, you know, I climb up on that little roof and I shit myself. Well, that guy spends his whole life up there. To him, it's totally normal.
It's condition.
Yeah. So you worst point of your life, it's that guy's day at the office, you know? That's the big challenge. So your training has to prepare you to deal with that, and so much of that is beyond this mechanical stuff. It's your mental conditioning, the way that you view yourself, the ego thing that we talked about yesterday. You might have all the physical skills in the world. Got a class that we're doing in a few weeks with a bunch of guys from our range, and one of them's like a top 100 shooter in Illinois. And I always train with the stuff I carry for the most part. And he's a competition shooter, but he does carry. And I said, well, dude, you should bring your carry gear out. He's like, yeah, I'll do that. And we're talking about it. And I realized he doesn't carry with a round in the chamber. And like, you know, we're like talking about that. And like, so then I'm like, why not, man? And he goes, well, somebody could take my gun from me. So like, he's already defeated before he's ever engaged in any struggle. He's planning. So what do you think he would probably do in a real fight? You know, he'd probably end up like this, like, fucking take it, man. Just fucking take it. You know, like he's already to that point mentally before he's ever engaged. So you must, I'm sure your unit, most advanced military units, race car drivers, athletes, they go through things mentally over and over and over. BJ Baldwin, the race truck driver, they go pre-run a course, like the Baja that they just did. They pre-run it, they videotape it, he memorizes it, and then he lays in bed, and many race car drivers do this, and they imagine every turn, every frickin' gear shift, the truck launching, feel the suspension. This is all just laying there. Smell the exhaust. You understand? Your subconscious then is like, yeah, we did this. We know what we're doing. You told me how to do this, I got you.
It's performance psychology oriented.
Yeah.
You want to perform good, you prepare as much as possible. Now, if you don't always have time to prepare like that, say like somebody in the competition who knows, like skiers, the Blue Angels, they sit around a conference table and make all their calls with their eyes closed before they go up in the air and start making those maneuvers in very potentially dangerous fucking machines that would probably kill them, most of them if they rammed into each other, right, in those maneuvers. They just sit around and make the calls on the radio as if they're doing it, and they visualize themselves banking or doing whatever they do in the air, right? Because they know it's high risk, right? But they have the opportunity to take advantage and plan and prepare. Downhill skiers, I wrote a paper on this for college, right? They go through the route in their head, even before they get on the slopes. It goes this way. Somebody helps them sometimes, reads it to them like, all right, now you're coming up on that jump, and then you hit. It's a short jump, it's flat jumps. You come back land, and you're cutting right, you know, whatever the case may be, and they go through it. and they know it in and out.
Step by step.
Now you say, well, I don't have that opportunity in self-defense or combat scenarios. Well, you do have some opportunity. Like I just said, in the restaurant, I just quickly analyze what my actions would be based off of where I am from the entrance or whatever, just quickly. I'm not sitting there like watching every fucking thing all the time, not paying attention to my wife. But
shit goes down, this is my response.
We're walking on a patrol in combat. You're going somewhere. Point A to point B is where the bad things happen, even in the civilian world. Point A to point B, in movement, catching you on the streets alone or whatever. Combat, same thing. I'm planning to go to a mission, but I got to get there. But what could happen in the meantime? IEDs, fucking ambushes. So you're walking, you're automatically looking, you're like, oh, I'm in the open area right here. So the formations, you spread out because I don't want everybody bunched together and get hit with one shot. Or I'm going through an alley, I'm like, this looks like an ambush opportunity, so we're a little more turned on, and you're kind of got guys looking high, looking low, and you in your head as an individual, you're thinking, all right, I know if I get contact on my designated side, because you spread the street, right? These guys got left, you got right. If I get contact here and it's close, I'm shooting right away, putting that fire down. If it's far, I'm just going to get down, figure out what's going on. So you're going through that in your head. I'm giving me that few seconds to plan for the environment I'm in at that time. So it could be that small of a visualization process, or around a conference table talking through every move and maneuver. See what I mean? Either way, you're taking that opportunity to prepare in some way, so you're not in the white when it happens.
Which all, again, comes back to being aware and investing some energy into whatever data you're taking in through your senses.
The gun's not going to pop out and shoot itself and protect you. Situational awareness is the most fucking important thing that you have as far as preparing for a situation.
You guys ever had a pure adrenaline dump? Anybody? I know I have. I mean, it could be getting up in front of a classroom when you were in 3rd grade. It could be a car accident. It could be violence. We all react to them different. Like this type of scenario, some people don't like talking in front of others. I don't mind it in this setting. I do in my other part of my life. I oftentimes have suit and ties on in front of hundreds of people, or even thousands sometimes. That fucking bothers the shit out of me sometimes. I had to introduce a state's attorney a couple years ago at a fundraiser. They asked me, I'm like, yeah, that'd be an honor, thank you. And I get there and help set up some stuff, and hour before I'm fine, and then I knew the girl that was speaking, I was coming up after, and all of a sudden, you know, and I knew this would happen to me. It's what often does. And I'm doing some combat breaths. I go in the bathroom, splash some water in my face. I'm like, am I gonna shit myself? I gotta pee like 3 times. Your body starts dumping everything in it. And I'm like looking at myself in the mirror, like, I don't need to be here. I can fucking leave. These people, I'm like an adult. They can't like make me be here. I'm rationalizing it. Like, I'll just leave. Like, literally, I can just walk to my truck and just leave, and they'll call my name, and I won't be there. And I'll just be like later, like, oh, like it was today. I thought it was, you know, like I'm literally like running through all this. And then
my grandma died. I gotta go.
Yeah, I look at my watch, and it was like 3 minutes. Fuck. So I walked out there, and like right as I entered the auditorium, like I hear my name, and I walked up, and hi, I'm that's what I heard, but everybody said later, like, oh, it was totally fine, man. You look like you were totally calm. Like one guy said, I hate that you can go up there so calmly and do that. And I was like, like there's a shit stain. I mean, there wasn't, but that, like my body reacts to that though, like that. Conversely, I've been involved in like violence on the street, and that doesn't accelerate my heart rate, partially because of probably how I grew up in a somewhat violent household, that I was conditioned to that, where it was just like, oh, more of that. And that's not like it's not a good or bad thing, it just is. So we all react to those things different. So you need to understand how you react so that you can plan for that. A little side note, that story I just told you, like about speaking, I don't tell myself every time I speak in front of people I get nervous and have an anxiety attack. I would never program that to happen. So I tell myself when I do that, I get more calm and relaxed with it. It's okay. I understand this is my body's response to stress, and I, for some reason, have convinced myself that this is stressful. I no longer believe it is, so I will work through that. I tell myself that. So what kind of things happen when we get that adrenaline dump? Auditory exclusion. You literally, I didn't hear the gunshots. I didn't hear him screaming, "Get down!" I didn't hear him. Or there's a car coming. You didn't hear it. Has that ever happened to anybody? In some type of stressful situation? Auditory exclusion, tunnel vision. Your body is literally focusing on whatever that perceived threat is. It might be principal yelling at you. It might be the train coming at you. It might be the guy pointing a gun at you. The gun looked this big. I was fixated on it. A lot of times you look at shooting data, you'll see weapons got shot. Why? Because the person fixated on the weapon. They had tunnel vision. We're going to talk in a minute about how to deal with that and break it. Tachypsychia. You ever heard of that word? That's a big one. Tachypsychia. It's like the distortion of time and space. I saw my whole life flash before my eyes. Or
You're in the zone and everything's slowed down.
yeah. And in that time frame, 2 or 3 punches flurried past me. Go watch a great boxer and stand in the ring. Part of that's conditioning. Part of it, though, is I believe that human beings can tap into that if you know how to. I'm not saying I can,
yeah.
but there are definitely people that can. A baseball player, I don't care how many times you practice that. They say there's dudes that can see the stitching as the ball's rolling towards them. They're literally taking their supercomputer and being like, right now, and that ball, it's just like out of the fucking Spider-Man movie. So that's not always a good thing, though. Right? You're trying to like move, but everything's not working right. I remember getting in a car wreck once. My son was a baby. Wife was sitting next to me, ex-wife. Had a 4-door Chevy S10 Blazer, like from 1990. It was all metal. And I always, because I drive so much, I'm always looking around me, and I had left space in front of us. We came to a busy intersection, and I look in the rearview mirror, and it was like, it's a slow motion started right when I looked up. The dude I could see was hauling ass, and he's, like, by the time I looked up, this car was probably to where the targets are, and he was doing like 40. Boom, rear ends us, and I watched in the rearview mirror my son's car seat, so I'm looking in the mirror, the truck, and it had the tire mounted on the back of the car. It pushed the whole back, the tire hit my kid's car seat, and the car seat ended up into the dash. And I remember seeing that, and I remember seeing my ex-wife somehow come out from underneath her seatbelt, and she ended up on the dash with her butt cheek through the windshield. And then like I could hear all the glass shards falling, and I remember that my rear view mirror was still hanging there, but like bent, and I could see the kid in the car all slumped over behind through all the broken glass. And I looked and I said, "Are you okay?" And I said, the kid's totally fine in the car seat crying. And I like touched him and it was like totally calm. And I got out and walked back there. What the fuck? You know, and I pulled his door open and he's like, "Oh," he was just spacing out. This is long before cell phones. He just probably was fucking with the radio or trying to light a cigarette or something. He was apologetic, and I laid him on the ground. Maybe 10 seconds had elapsed at that point, but there was so much information that my brain was like trying to process, where at that same point, my wife was in tears and like, you know, shaking. So that stress does different things to us. But at that point, I saw like all kinds of cool things happen. That was kind of like my first recollection of that kind of happening. Where other people, that kind of stuff, you may fixate on one thing and that's all you remember. That's why they say that a person involved in violence is like the worst witness to what happened. Because everybody, I'm sure if you were to sit with a bunch of your buddies involved in a combat action and say what happened, you'll get 20 different stories because everybody keyed in on different things, even if they were all in the same space, right? Vasoconstriction. Who knows what that is? You're a medic.
I'm not a medic.
He is.
Vascular restriction.
Yeah, so your body under fight or flight draws all the blood back to your core. This is why we have
Shunting, kind of.
issues. Who's that? Come on, tough guy.
Condition orange.
You have, shoot him. My long underwear just took a shellacking. Our body draws blood into its core so that we have oxygen that we need to make our heart and lungs work. This unfortunately causes our limbs to become heavy. You guys need to come out from underneath there. It's much warmer in the sun, just so you know. He touched on it a moment ago, fight, flight, freeze. Some of that I think is created from your childhood exposure to things. So you need to start to figure out, are you the type of person that wants to fight, take off running, or freeze up? And there's not some hard line answer like you're this guy, you're that guy. Different things, as I just told you, cause different responses in people. There's ways to deal with that. Combat breathing, we expose ourselves to this through training, we expose ourselves to it through mental conditioning. Combat breathing, most of the world, we got away from things that Oriental medicine knew about for years. Things like how our nerves send energy through the body, how the flow of energy through our body can impede healing and growth. Oxygen is required for every bit of this furnace to work. You deal with that stress by simply sucking air in and blowing it out. That helps break tunnel vision. And when you're fixating on things like on that target when we're shooting, even the little bit of stress that we have on the firing line, we need to change our focal shift. If we're locked into that target, we don't see anything else going on. Our pupils lock in, the muscles in our eye literally like set during an adrenaline dump. You can combat that by picking something else and forcing yourself to focus on it. That's why vision can get blurry when you're having an adrenaline dump, because your focal distance is set because those muscles lock. Have you ever had that happen? No? Yes? Think about it. As we're out here though doing this scanning and assessing, I told you yesterday, pick things at different distances, and physically I see a rock, the steel, I see a little smear of lead on the target. Pick something, force yourself to actually see it, not just swing your eyeballs around. The motor skill degradation that we have from that vasoconstriction, people talk about fine versus gross motor skills. He touched on it yesterday. You know, do we manipulate the slide with the slide lock, or do we use these gross movements? Part of that stuff you can train through. Is this not kind of a fine motor skill as much as this? Or pushing the mag release, right? You may need to have some fine motor skills. It's not a bad thing to learn to train through. So this stuff's all in the literature that we handed out to you. One of the most important things is that all of these skills become subconscious. If you're having to think about how do I load the gun, you're fucked. If you have to think about how am I pressing the trigger correctly, you're fucked. So we prepare ourselves to deal with that by having all of those skills at a subconscious level.
For all the bad, or the seem to be negative things, I like your haircut, man. It's a nice haircut. All the bad things that happen physiologically and mentally, how many things do you know of in your body naturally, your mental responses, your physical responses, that are put there to have an adverse effect on you? How many things that you were God-given are supposed to have an adverse effect? You know any? Or does it seem like everything that makes you up as a human has some kind of purpose? Seem that way?
Sure.
They do. So all the nerves, all the tunnel vision, all that is programmed inside of you so you can deal with the situation at hand, right? So at certain degrees of chaos or stress, you lose focus of everything else that you need to focus on because your body is doing what it's supposed to do. It's like, hey, let me help you out. I'm gonna give you this increased adrenaline. I'm gonna keep your core with blood because these are your internals, the most important parts of you. I'm gonna help you focus better on something. It's all good things. You just have to look at it that way. And you have to learn to control it, intelligence over emotion, right? To use it for the purpose that you need it for, right? So the nerves, you know, I was a fighter. I was in combat. I had a lot of things that I had to work through nerves and anxiety. Fighting was the worst for me because you had so much time to prepare for it. The time was my enemy because I had a lot of time to think negatively and think about all the bad things that might happen, everything I couldn't control. So I had to go back, like, what can I control? My preparation and my approach to all the physiological things going on in my body. So the nerves, hey, that's a good thing. You're getting amped up, so you're getting warmed up. Your body is preparing for physical action. That's good. I'm starting to breathe hard, I'm doing this. You're like, good. You're gonna need to breathe hard. You need those lungs opening up, all right? I'm beginning to focus on one thing, good, because you're gonna need that focus when somebody's throwing a punch to slow things down for you so you can utilize the things that you've learned in training, all right? So it's a good thing. So take it for what it's worth, but as you prepare for something, prepare for a drill, even in front of somebody out here doing a drill, I go through something in my head like, okay, you've trained for this, you know how to do it. Let's embrace it. You're getting amped up because it's time to be amped up, because it's time to perform. That's good. That doesn't mean I'm bad. I think inherently, a lot of us think, I'm getting nervous, that's bad. You're supposed to get nervous. Your body is preparing. It's good that you're nervous. That's where the courage comes out. There's no courage without fear. I had my first coach in fighting, John Ivey. He's called the Leg Lock Monster. He's from Tennessee area, originally from Texas. He's one of those guys that's fought like 100 times,
wow.
Lost most of them. But he's just a tough dude, and he lives off of that fighting persona that he has, right? He's got tattoos all over. He's that badass. Even to the day that he had 80-something fights, he told one of our other coaches, and that coach told me this, he's like, man, I'm such a fucking pussy. Before he goes out, he's like, such a fucking pussy. He's like, I'm fucking nervous, I'm scared. He's like, listen, dumbass. You could talk to him that way. He's like, are you going to fight still? And he's like, yes. He's like, have you fought every time you've been nervous? And he said, yes. He's like, that's fucking courage. You fucking anteed up and you did it anyway. You faced the fear. Now, was he doing it the best way he could? No. That's why the subpar performance a lot of times. He wasn't preparing as well as he should have, and he wasn't approaching it like that, like somebody's just gonna take my gun, or they might take my gun, so I'm not gonna keep a bullet in it. That's telling myself the nerves are bad. I'm fucking nervous. I'm not gonna be able to do shit if somebody grabs me. I guess I'm just fucked. All right, so I guess you either train for that. That'll help with your confidence and those nerves, because you'll be able to tell yourself something when that nerves come on. You'll say, yeah, I'm nervous, but did I prepare for this? Do I know what to fucking do? Yes, I do. As a cop, this might go down, but have I seen it before? Yes. Can I handle it? Yes, I can do it. And automatically you're embracing, saying, yeah, the nerves are there. I know what to fucking do though. Let me use those nerves. You see what I mean? You got to look at it positively, because that's what it's intended for, to help you, not to hurt you. There's nothing inherently part of yourself as a human that is built into you that is supposed to be bad. It's supposed to be used for a purpose. It's all for a purpose, right? Digestive system, your lungs.
Reproductive system.
Reproductive system. It's meant for good things, not just to have. You see what I'm saying though? Approach it that way. So we're out here training. Anytime we're put on the spot, Mick feels it, I feel it.
Sure.
We say, all right, I'm feeling nervous because it's time to perform, and my body is preparing me for performance. Approach it that way. Does that make sense? It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be nervous. That is what you're designed to do, and it's preparing you.
Which goes back to what we talked about yesterday and again today, coming to grips with your ego and embracing who you are instead of trying to pretend to be something you're not. So yesterday we learned to engage whatever the action was, get a final sight picture with a trigger prep, competently and consciously scanning, not just swinging our head around. And now we're gonna add in, as we're recovering, just take a few deep breaths, suck some air into your lungs. Don't hyperventilate. Breathe in deeply till your lungs are expanded. Don't just breathe in where you feel your chest rise. Try to get your belly to fill too. You've got a lot of people from big picture here. The reason that a lot of us don't deal well with the fight or flight is because oftentimes it's our body responding to things that are not true physical threats. We live a life of sedation now. We sit in a car, the food's not being hunted for, there's nobody coming and hacking our wives' heads off with axes at night and burning our wigwams down, right? So we have this same response to true violence to somebody honking at you in traffic or your boss yelling at you or whatever. So you still get that response without true violence. So as he's saying, it's there for a reason, so learn to work with it. Our breath has become super shallow. We don't exercise enough. I say we as a human society. We're sedentary, as I just said. We drink too much, we eat too much. I mean, look, I just had breakfast, and as soon as I got back here, I said this yesterday, I'm thinking about what and where and when is lunch, you know? Where people were like happy to have a meal for a couple of days. We are always satiated, so we got to start getting ourselves to breathe again. Fill your lungs, dump them a few times, scan, recover safely. You guys all getting cold? No? Did you guys do any kind of stretching or warming up today? No? Okay, well I'm gonna talk while we do that. But you guys spread out a little bit. I want you to stretch your arms out. The one problem with like a lot of training like we're doing is you want to get better, but as soon as your body no longer will support the training, like yesterday, towards the end of the day, I started missing. My hands start to get tired, start to get like degraded, because that's all I can give at that point. I can try harder, but if my platform's not going to let me do it, I used to dry fire so much that I had tendon damage here. It took 18 months to heal from freaking just gripping the shit out of the pistol. I exploded a blood vessel here, and this whole knuckle swelled up as big as a marble from just overdoing it. You understand? So a lot of these tendons and such in our body, even I talked yesterday about being able to pivot and be flexible. If you are trying to train without also conditioning your body, you're hurting yourself. So super easy stuff here to help limber yourself up. Don't bounce when you stretch. When you stretch a muscle, your muscles are like elastic rubber bands. You know, if you take a cold rubber band and just go ring, 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 you know, probably not good, right? So you stretch it, hold it, and then slowly release it. Does that make sense? So, you know, you don't like don't do weird bouncy shit. So great exercise. Take your arms, point them straight out, just bend your knees just ever so slightly. Try to touch the tree line on either side of you. So you should start to feel your like fingertips elongate out of their sockets.
I can't reach it, Nick.
But you're trying. You're not pushing at all. Push. So you should start to feel your shoulders, your elbows, your back. Feel those different muscle groups engaging. You're pushing out. Now, while still pushing out, you could even imagine that there's strings tied to each finger dragging your arms apart. Nicely, not painfully. Start closing them towards the middle. So as you're coming together, they're still being pulled away. You're not arching your back's straight. So now you're gonna touch what's in front of you. Same. You can rotate your hands around as you're doing this. You're gonna feel different muscles in your elbows, in your shoulders, in your upper arms start to move and tweak. And again, I'm not bouncing, I'm stretching. Now start coming all the way back up to the sky. You're still bent. Now are you breathing? You guys holding your breath? Why are your arms bent? Yeah, stretch them. You laughing? You're like, I lift weights, motherfucker, not this faggot stretching stuff. Now imagine that you are pushing two huge weights down to the ground. You're squashing. If you're doing this right, you actually should start to feel your body getting pumped up with blood, because as I'm doing this, I'm literally engaging muscles. Take your arms, put them out, make a couple fists, and imagine that you're wringing a dish towel. Look at this, I'm rotating one arm forward, the other one the other way. You're wringing out a towel, just hold that. These are great if you've got tennis elbow or what's the opposite of tennis elbow? Golfer's elbow, the other side. So hold that for 20, 30 seconds and then rotate the other way. You dig? You still breathing? What are you doing? So look, so like you could do this both ways. So you're literally twisting like a dish rag. You feel that? You feel your elbows starting to totally loosen up now? Yeah? Do you guys know like simple yoga moves like down dog like this? I'm not telling you have to do this. These kind of movements, people think this is just like an actual stretching technique, but you're doing things to your inside. You're changing the way that blood flows through your body as you're doing that. So it would be beneficial to you to spend some time studying some of those types of stretching movements, especially before you show up at the range, because these tendons in our hands, what are we doing for the last day and all day today? We're fucking squeezing, you know, like crazy. That's not really, there's nothing else in your life you would ever do that other than chronic masturbation. Okay, how many bullets does it take to stop a bad guy? Many as it takes. Who decides when the fight's done? If you're fighting somebody, who says it's done? The other guy. Fucking A. You got to get him to the point of saying done. So you could say, I do. I say when I quit. Right. He says when he quits. Right? So you got to get him or her or them to the point of saying enough. That could take 1 round. It could take 30. Handguns are not magic off switches for human beings. That's why people don't hunt deer or wild boar with the 9mm we carry. They just happen to be easy to hide. It's not a good tool though to stop a couple 100-pound sacks of meat. So that's why we're training to have this grip where we can keep the gun into the target zone and keep getting rounds downrange. That's why we want high capacity guns with more magazines so that we can deal with that. Who knows who Jared Reston is? Anybody ever heard that name? Any of you guys interested, we've got him in Chicago at our range in a couple weeks actually. Jared's a SWAT cop from Jacksonville, Florida. I tell this story in every class. Jared's about 6'2", 230, 240, big Viking looking son of a gun. Was working at a mall security. He was a cop, but he was there with one of his partners doing like side work. They were dressed in their uniforms. They were police officers, and they get a call that there's some shoplifters. Whatever, go take care of this like they do every time. So they find these 2 guys, grown men. They're like 19-year-old guys. I think the smaller one was my size, and the bigger one was a little bit bigger. So Jared takes off after the faster one. They're trotting for quarter mile. He's yelling at him, I'm the police, I'm not mall security, because this kid thinks like, hey, you're just a rent-a-cop, I don't have to listen to you. He's telling him, I am fucking law enforcement, stop running. Kid doesn't stop, he gets his taser out. This is at a full-on sprint. So he's telling him, I'm gonna tase you, get the fuck down, I'm gonna tase you, stop running. Deploys the taser, doesn't work. Resets it, doesn't work. He reholsters it and puts the screws to it and catches up to the guy. As he catches him, kid turns and they start going to blows. So he's like, all right. So he clinches up and he said he starts driving some knees into the dude's thigh, trying to get him to go down. Guy breaks free and takes off running. So he's like, ugh. Takes off again. Turn around. So he catches up, grabs the kid by the hoodie, and at that point, he said the kid breaks off of him and pops him. And he says he's down on his back. And thought, whoa. He's laying there like, damn, I didn't think that kid could hit me that hard. Realizes at this point that he wasn't punched. He felt his tongue probing around and his teeth were all folded in the bottom of his mouth. And he realized the kid shot him. As he thinks this, he opens up his eyes and sees flashes. The guy's over him with a Glock 21, 45 caliber gun, shooting him. So now he says he realizes, fuck, he's killing me. I'm in a gunfight. Now, fractions of a second have elapsed here, but he's processing all of this. Thinks about, my kids are gonna have no dad. Fight! And he gets his gun out. His left arm was broken. He shot him, one of the rounds went through his humerus, so he couldn't use this arm. He was able to kind of like prop himself up, he said, where he was like this. And he's shooting the dude, and he said he kept giving him a round, and he'd see his coat pop, or his sweatshirt pop, or see him kind of wince a little bit, but he wasn't going down, so he said he'd find a sight on him and give him another. I gave him another. 13 rounds he gave him out of his 40, 175 Ranger, probably what you carry in your 40 now. Finally, he reached up and grabbed the kid, pulled him down on top of him, and contact shot him in the head to shut him off. He ended the fight, was shot 7 times. He shot the kid 14. That's a lot of bullets. They figure the whole thing lasted about 3 seconds. 1001, 1002, 1003. That's everything I just described in pretty good detail, only lasted a few seconds. They get him to the hospital, they get him stitched up, his jaw's wired shut, he's got fucking tubes and shit all in him. The round entered here and exited down here. I think it was a day and a half later he woke up. I was like, I don't want to be here. Pulled all the fucking tubes and shit out of himself without anybody knowing. Found some clothes and skedaddled, went home. His wife's like, what the fuck are you doing here? I don't want to be in a hospital. Never went back. Went back to work like 3 months later. He's still on the job. So like the idea of shooting somebody and them stopping, he got the desired effect in 3 seconds while already having been shot. In addition to that, the rounds hit this kid in his heart, in his liver. He was dead already. The round hit the bottom of his heart. He was bleeding out. It would have been a matter of a few seconds before he gave up anyway. His mind didn't tell him to yet. His body was, was failing, but his mind was still there in the fight. So we must have that thought process as we're engaging these targets. When I'm telling you to say, did I hit, did it work? There's a reason for that. I'm still engaging. I'm not done. I'm not taking this gun offline. Then, as we were telling you guys yesterday, don't put a gun back in the holster with no ammo with 2 rounds. If you've decided the fight's over, top the fucking gun off, control the area, then get your gun back in the holster. How do rounds from a gun stop a human being? What has to happen? Blood loss, so that's exsanguation. This is all in your notes, guys. So you bleed out, which takes a while. Even if it takes 5 seconds, that could take a while. Structural damage, so physically break bones, big bone structures. Man can't stand, a man can't fight. Karate Kid. Yeah. Central nervous system. That's the one that we're hoping for. We shut down the computer. One of, I think, the thing that we're going to delve into today as we're shooting is we got to start thinking about how we respond to stimulus. So there's a study, and this is all in your notes here so you guys can read about this. There's a study called the Tempe study, Tempe, Arizona. This is where the Tueller drill came from. You guys ever heard of the Tueller drill? People call it the 21-foot rule. We'll do it at about 30 feet, but it's a study that an average man can cover about 21 feet in about 1.5 seconds. So that means I could run to you in about 1.5 seconds, which means that if I had an edged weapon or my fist or whatever, even if you could draw, you move, but I'm stabbing you or whatever. Even if you could draw and shoot me, that doesn't mean I'm no longer a threat. The reason that they did this study is because cops were shooting people with bludgeons or knives, and then a juror or a prosecutor would say, the man had a knife, he was across the room, you shot him. Well, yeah, but he could cover the distance of the room in 1 second, 1.5 seconds, and still be a threat. This study also showed that the average human being takes about 1/4 second to receive stimulus. So when we're using that timer yesterday, if we look at the response time, it takes all of us about 1/4 second, that's the blink of an eye, to hear it and say, I heard it. It takes about 1/4 second, pay attention to these numbers, about 1/4 second for you to now come up with a solution. 1 or 2 of you yesterday had like some issues during a drill where the gun didn't work, and you're like, stop for a minute, like a couple of you when we were on the timer. And then you're like, fuck, I gotta make it work, right? So the response time became longer than that 1/4 second. So that's 1/2 second, best case scenario, to see the stimulus and then respond to it. You tracking so far? The average human can fire a handgun about every 0.2 seconds. So that's 5 rounds in a second. 0.2 seconds times 5, 1 second, right? So add to that, most of us, and we'll do this on the timer today, best case scenario from concealment on average is about 1.5 seconds. So there's guys that I can get a shot once in a while, like 0.8, 0.9, but reliably getting a good hit, not just banging at a piece of paper 5 feet away, 1.5 seconds. So if you and I are about to square off and you are reacting to me, by the time I'm here and you see a threat, Takes you quarter second to realize it, quarter second to respond, half second. If he draws and shoots in a second and a half plus a half second, 2 seconds. How many times can I shoot in 2 seconds?
10.
So 10 fucking times, and this is perfect math if he does everything right. Means I could shoot him about 10 times before he even has a chance to respond to me. That's only 2 seconds, guys, just 2 fucking seconds. We're not talking about minutes. Again, we talk about this because if you shoot somebody and they're like, how did you shoot him so many times? Well, you can explain this. This is pretty normal. The average human being can shoot about every 2/10 of a second. So I took 2 or 3 seconds, which means I put 6, 8, 9 rounds into him. By then, I started to get the desired response, and I backed off the trigger. So I don't want to keep talking. There's more to talk about, but let's get geared up. Questions on any of that? I wanted you to think about these numbers because we're going to talk about it later as we're working on the timer and doing stuff where we're moving. You know, a couple fractions of seconds can be death.
Visit our website, carrytrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., Carry Trainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@carrytrainer.com or carrytrainer.com.